It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
And good morning to you. How you doing this morning, JJ?
It's a Saturday morning. I think this is my second one, right? My second Saturday.
I know. Yeah, you've been a little bit of a stranger in these parts, but
I'm reminded
it's nice.
of why it's so hard for me to do this.
Well, it's always nice to have you. I'm glad
Thank
to
you.
Glad to have a chance to chat with you this morning before we chat again this evening.
Me too. Very excited about it.
How's your movie life been? Anything new and exciting going on?
So you may or may not have heard, if you've been listening to Trailer Rewind and the Cuban Fury episode that we did, that my big thing for my movie life is going to sound really like not exciting, is that I picked up Harold and Maude from the library because I had never seen it before. And that was a really interesting thing. And I think that, most people have seen it, so it's like not interesting, but it was a blind spot for me, and it's a very, very interesting, strange movie. Yeah,
it's really just kind of a very interesting love story is what it is, and it's one I've always been partial to. I really love the characters. I am a bit of a fan of Cat Stevens, so having his music constantly on the soundtrack, I think is just really great. The casting is just superb. What's her name? Why am I blanking on Ruth Gordon? Ruth Gordon.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that she is just brilliant, and Bud Cort, of course, is great. And I'm a big fan of Hal Ashby as a director. So yeah.
Well, and from a directing standpoint, it's really remarkable. I feel like it kind of. So for me, it was recommended to me as like a kind of Genesis movie for comedy, which I don't know that I would agree with that, but I'm kind of tough for comedy anyway. But what I felt like it was kind of like a super inspirational piece for someone like Wes Anderson. And then it reminded me of like, if Wes Anderson made The Graduate, that would be Harold and Maude to me. So it was really interesting. I didn't find it, world changing, which wasn't, probably because I've seen all this stuff that it's inspired, right? Because it took me so long to see it. But I thought the music cues were spectacular, and I thought from a directing standpoint, it was really it was special. And to see a movie of that time period have so much creatively done with camera and visual storytelling, I thought was really special too. But unfortunately, it just felt really weird to me. I wasn't able to really kind of make an emotional connection with it because I was kind of I was trying to read probably too much into it. I wasn't just kind of sitting there for the experience. But I think it was a really special movie, and strange that I didn't know that it was as artful as it is. It's not marketed as like an art film. I mean, I watched The Graduate in high school as an example of what you could do with the film medium, but no one ever talked about Harold and Maude.
Which is a shame, because I think that there's really some just great stuff going on in there. And again, Hal Ashby, I think as a director, he tells a really interesting story here. And I think through his career, he made a lot of really great personal films that I think were all incredibly artful. I think he's absolutely a director that is worth talking more about and examining. And
it's a series.
It might be. I think we've only talked about Being There on the show. That's I think that's the only Hal Ashby film we've discussed. So there's certainly more to chat about.
Yeah. Definitely. How about you? What's going on in your movie life?
It's been so slow in my movie life. I've just not been catching much lately. But in the last few days, I have finally started trying to play Oscar catch up because I've been so drastically behind on watching anything that was nominated for this past round of Oscars. So I finally watched the animated film Loving Vincent.
I don't know if you
heard about it, but it's an amazing film. It's basically kind of a film about Vincent van Gogh, and but technically it's kind of exploring his last week before he killed himself, a year after the fact, in a very kind of Rashomon type of style, as this guy is trying to deliver this last letter that Vincent had written to his brother's widow.
Wow.
As a story, it's like, it was interesting. I never fully was invested in it. I had some issues with the story, but the thing that really is amazing about the film is the entire film is hand oil painted. Every single frame of the film is an oil painting, and they did it in kind of a Van Gogh style. And it was like one of the most breathtaking things to watch, because you're constantly feeling like every frame could be paused and it could be just a painting on a wall. I mean, it was just stunning to look at. So
yeah, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it was really a wild thing just to imagine that somebody decided to, let's do the whole thing in oil painting in Van Gogh style. It's like, wow.
Right. Well,
so that was
it won the Oscar, I assume. It
did not. No, Coco did. Yeah, Coco still beat it out.
And Coco's good, again, but
a lot of it still goes to storytelling,
right?
I think. Yeah, Coco, I think it's a lot of times when the best films win, it's popularity and I think storytelling. And that was, I think, one of the weaker parts of Loving Vincent. I think it's an interesting story, but I never was like invested in the story as much as I wanted to be.
Got it. So it was more of what they're going to do with the animation. That makes sense.
But still, it's definitely worth checking out, because it's it's just mind blowing to think that they did that. So
yeah, that's special. Well, and it got a nomination, so they're showing that it is a special thing.
Absolutely
cool.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm hoping to really start kicking it in, and I've put a bunch of the now they're finally all getting released. I haven't been able to make it to the theater much lately. The movie theater near me. It's one of these silly movie theaters that, I live in the wrong part of town apparently. And they basically close after like the 6 or 7 o'clock movie is like the last movie of the evening. So I can never sneak out to a late show, unless I drive like an extra half hour to the next theater. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
So
I'm a late move show guy. So yeah,
that's all I can make it to because of the family and everything. It's just, it's hard, with homework and activities and bedtimes and stuff. It's like, unless it's a 9 o'clock show, I just can't get out to it. So
definitely.
Oh, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, that's what did you see? So we're doing Ready Player One tonight. Did you see the late show of that this week?
No, I actually didn't, because the family wanted to see that one. So I took them to the 6 o'clock show in IMAX 3D last night. So
whoa, 3D.
Yes.
I'll have lots of questions for you about that tonight.
Yes, I'm looking forward to chatting more about it. And I do want to sneak out again and see it in Dolby Atmos, especially after a conversation with Andy Nelson, the re-recording mixer, who worked on it. And just and having seen it now, I just feel like, the soundscape in there was pretty strong. And I feel like the Atmos experience is probably going to be pretty amazing. So, are
you going to see it before we talk about it tonight in Atmos?
No, I won't have a chance.
Because I had some major theater problems with it.
Oh, no. Because you saw it in Atmos?
No, in regular, but particularly with sound. My theater was really weak in terms of sound. So, yeah. But we'll talk about that tonight, too. But it's, I think I'm actually kind of nervous that it colored some of my opinion of the film because it was so weak.
Wow.
It's like quiet, even.
You check it again. It doesn't sound like you'll get a chance, but
no.
I mean, in the IMAX, that's already a great sound system, and it was a pretty expansive sound. Like I had a great time in the world of the sound in that film.
Nice.
So I have a feeling that Atmos will just kick it up an extra notch too. So yeah,
and that's super important.
Oh yeah, it's a huge thing that will really, like you said, it does color your experience with the movie. If you have bad sound or quiet sound or something's off, absolutely.
You don't realize how much it matters until it sucks, and then it's like,
exactly.
Oh, that was supposed to be more important.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh man, that's frustrating. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all right. It'll be good conversation fodder for us tonight on the film board.
Absolutely. Well, hey, let's jump into trailers, shall we?
Okay.
Excellent. I think, neither of us are really, we don't have the A24 rule. We don't have the red band rule. I came so close to pulling an A24 because there's a great new A24 trailer, but I couldn't do it because I saw another trailer I had to go with. But do you want to kick it off or do you want me to kick it off?
What's the rule about it?
Whoever picks the A24 trailer gets to go first when we're having our trailer conversation. Likewise, the red band rule is whoever gets brings in the Red Band trailer gets to go first.
Nope.
The rule we decided last time is because two of us had A24 trailers, there's the A24 cancel factor, where if two of you have it, then they're canceled out and the other person gets to go first. So,
oh my gosh.
I know.
So many unwritten rules.
A whole series of these unwritten rules that we keep coming up with. It's pretty fantastic.
Okay, well, I'll kick it off. Mine is not A24, but I wanted to talk about Deadpool 2. And the reason, well, I want to talk about it for lots of reasons, just because I think Deadpool was a transformative film in terms of superhero movies, the original one. And I think it's Deadpool 2 is coming out at a time that's really interesting for what's happening in comic books. I'm still super surprised that none of you guys have talked about this on the Sat Matt, but the new trailer for Deadpool just came out, and it's a little bit more descriptive, and it shows a whole lot more of what's happening in the film. That being said, it's still shrouded in a lot of secrecy what's being done in the film and what characters are going to be released in the film. So when you get the Deadpool 2 trailer, you see a whole lot more of X-Force, which is what they're going to bring out here. But even if you go to IMDb and you look at the characters that are listed, there's only a small sampling there. There's a huge number of actors that are listed without their role listed. So they're still keeping a lot of things close to the vest about what's actually coming out as a part of Deadpool 2. So that's really interesting because X-Force is one of these interesting titles in the comic book world that is where the reason that Marvel first introduced the Avengers was because it had such flexibility in the way that it could approach bringing in different characters. So as they set up the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they had all this ability to bring in a character like Spider-Man, who's not really technically an Avenger, but everyone at some time or another in the Marvel comic book universe has been an Avenger. I mean, even Wolverine, like these major X characters, because it's this kind of catch-all title. Well, X-Force kind of works like that in the X universe, in that when it started, it was one lineup that included some of the New Mutants, it included some of the X-Men, it included all this, but then it changed over time. And the interesting thing about it is that in this new trailer, you see the bad guy, or the new character that they're introducing, and that's Cable. Cable is played by Josh Brolin, and he's being depicted in this new trailer as the bad guy in Deadpool 2. Which is really interesting because then you have the big Marvel movie now it's in April. It was going to be in May, but Infinity War, which is the culmination of all the Avengers movie, where Josh Brolin actually plays the big bad guy in that too. He plays Thanos. So now you have these competing Marvel movies with two big bad guys, and everybody's wondering, like, is it okay that he's playing both? I think that, it's kind of opening the door for something that could be a crossover between the two, although Thanos and Cable are not in any way linked in the Marvel comic book universe. But Cable is this really interesting transition character in the X universe where he's actually a time traveler. He's Cyclops' son from the future that comes back. Yeah.
Holy
Nathan
cow.
Summers. And credited as such on the IMDb page for Deadpool 2. It says Nathan Summers / Cable, played by Josh Brolin. So that's opening that door. Now, X-Force 1, I have the initial, like, from the comic book world, I had a subscription when it first came out. So I was a big fan of the first stuff that came out. Cable was actually the leader of X-Force when it started. So Cable started out as a good guy. And Deadpool actually was introduced to the Marvel comic book universe as a villain for X-Force. So you get this they're mashing it up over at Fox, right, with their X titles because they can, and they're being smart about what they're doing it. But then also you had this huge move in the last year where Disney came in and sort of, I wouldn't say railroaded, but really kind of assumed Marvel has assumed all of the Marvel titles and has more effect on it now. So you see, this is a huge move from something that's been extremely successful with Fox to like Marvelize what's happening with Deadpool. And I think there's a lot of positivity coming out here. If you look at Ryan Reynolds' IMDb page, you'll see that Deadpool 3 has already been announced. X-Force has already been announced. And he's in all of them. So they're lining up to do this, and I'm super excited about it because I thought Deadpool, again, was transformative, really special, and I'm really excited for this. I think the new trailer will get you excited, and if you are a comic book person, it'll get you excited for the Easter eggs, and for lack of a different word, of things that are going to come out in Deadpool 2.
I really agree. I mean, Deadpool was just such a great experience and such a surprising experience. I had so much fun with that. And I'm glad that they were able to pull that off, because through the success of that, they realized, hey, maybe we can do an R-rated film with Wolverine. And so we ended up getting Logan out of that. And
Right.
thank the stars that we did, because that is just one of my faves. And this absolutely just looks hilarious. It looks like it's right along side of the first one as far as the tone and everything they're doing there. So yeah, I'm super excited for it, and I'm really curious to see where these other ones are going to go. Like, is the X-Force going to be, does that fall into the R-rated territory as well, or does that one step into more of a PG-13? Like, if Deadpool's around, does it always by default have to turn into an R-rated film? And I just don't know. Like, I'm not exactly sure enough about that character or how he works, but I think it's interesting, and I love that they're continuing down the road. So
I will say that the trailer's pretty R-rated, at least from a language perspective. And,
well, even the non-red band, like the green band trailer that played before Ready Player One with my kids, I was like, oh, they're still saying some words in here that I wish was not in a regular trailer.
Right. Did they have the gunshot where he puts his hand up? And
no, that was not.
Okay, so there's a gunshot in the trailer that I saw where he puts his hand up to a gun, Cable's gun shoots through his hand, and then Deadpool turns the gun around, breaking Cable's wrist, and shoots Cable in the head with it. All in the trailer.
I think I saw that in the red band trailer when I watched it, but not in the green band, which is probably best that my kids didn't watch that. But
yeah, and that's all out there. It's going to be intensely rated R again, which is, again, I think the comic book cinematic universe needs this
awesome
spectrum for the movies. One other piece that I want to say about it before we go: the director is David either Leitch or Leitch, who has a background as a stuntman, and he's only got 5 director credits, but one of them is Atomic Blonde, and another one is John Wick. He's uncredited as a director in John Wick, but he did direct Atomic Blonde, and I will tell you that of the last year, Atomic Blonde is probably my favorite action film. So I'm very excited to see what he brings to this movie in terms of action, coming from a stuntman background. And Deadpool 1 was a first-time movie for, I think his name is Jim Miller, I want to get back to. But the fact that they're using Deadpool as this kind of like creative place for directors to show their stuff, I'm kind of excited about what's going to happen from an action perspective in this movie, because Atomic Blonde's action is just fantastic. And
that's still something I haven't seen, regrettably. I know. It's high on my list.
I was going to say, I think it's as valuable as Wonder Woman in terms of feminism for action women on screen. What were you going to say about Deadpool 2?
When does it come out?
Oh, it is May or June. Let me get it here. 18th of May, 2018. Excellent. Here we come.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. What's your trailer?
Well, I went a totally different route.
Okay.
I'm doing a biopic. It's kind of a comedy drama biopic. And I went with this because, as people who listen to the show know, I'm quite the fan of Melissa McCarthy. I think she's just a brilliant actress. I love watching her. I think she's hilarious. She's not afraid to be raunchy and just go down very strange roads. I really think that she's just, somebody who I find special to watch. I have always a great time watching her. And this new film looks really interesting. It's called Can You Ever Forgive Me?
Okay.
And it's a biopic. She's playing an author, Lee Israel, who her books have kind of fallen out of favor. She's, her publisher, played by Jane Curtin, is just like, you got to find something else. No one's just buying your stuff anymore. And she finds this letter that is it's like a letter that some author had written, and she sells it, and she finds out she can make money selling these things. And so she basically turns her career into forging fake letters from authors and selling them for money. And it turns into this quite lucrative career. And she's just like making a ton of money doing it. And she paired with her friend, played by Richard E. Grant, who's just always fun to watch on screen. He's never disappointed in whatever he is. is. And I know eventually Pete's going to get us to talk about Hudson Hawk at some point, which he'll
Very
be
good.
the highlight for me of rewatching that film because he's just so over the top. But he looks great as her friend here. And of course, things start, the FBI eventually is pursuing her and it turns into this whole thing. And it just, watching Melissa McCarthy in this trailer, just, I love seeing her playing something that's so different from what she's been doing when she's doing some of the more raunchy comedies that she's been enjoying. And this is just like a real kind of a centered character that's going through this crisis. And you see a lot of it as she plays through it. So Mariel Heller is directing it. She is, I think, mostly known as an actress, but she did direct The Diary of a Teenage Girl a few years back. And she's one of those kind of multi-talented people who's, been at the Sundance Screenwriting Fellowship and Directing Fellowship. And she's just one of those people who people are really watching. And so she's behind it. And I'm very curious about this. What do you think?
Well, now, is this going to be Melissa McCarthy's, Tom Hanks, Jim Carrey turn into more serious film?
I feel like maybe as a lead, she certainly has played in more serious films before. She was, but not necessarily as the lead. Like when she was in St. Vincent, which was that Bill Murray film. She was the kid's mother, and there was a little more. I mean, there's still some comedy in that film, but I think it took a little more of a serious tone. So she's done it before, and. I think that, and honestly, if you go back to some of her earlier films, there are some films in there that are a little more, walking the line of comedy drama. So it's an interesting thing to see, but as a lead, yes, I think this is largely kind of a chance for her to kind of have that breakout opportunity to do something a little more expansive.
Well, I think it's really interesting, and I think it sounds like it's such an interesting life story. It's a biopic that I think is just interesting on its lonesome, and I think it's really interesting that she's going to do it. When I actually read, I went to the Wikipedia page about it because I was interested about the story, and it's listed here in Wikipedia. Who knows if it's true, but that it originally it was supposed to star Julianne Moore. So, and then she dropped out in July of 2015, and then Melissa McCarthy came on. So that's something. The reason why I asked the first question about if this is her serious film turn is I think that's an interesting pairing. If you consider that the line to be Lee Israel started with Julianne Moore and led to Melissa McCarthy, I think it says a lot about Melissa McCarthy and her career. I think it's really special, and I'm excited to see it and see more of what she can do.
Well, it looks like this one is going to be hitting theaters. Right now, it's only showing in the U.S. As a release, but I'm sure it'll go elsewhere. October 19th, 2018, so later this year.
Very cool.
Fantastic. Well, the two movies worth checking out. And I guess that means it's time to talk about our lists, buddy.
That sounds great. I'm excited for the list. I'm guessing a lot on the list, so you're going to have to give me a lot of grace about how I approached my list for this. Oh, but I did also want to say we talked about May 18th for Deadpool. I may be in Sweden for that. So you just mentioned international releases. I may need to see Deadpool 2 in Swedish.
That is fantastic, though. How exciting.
I'm excited for it. I don't know. I don't know if it'll be as funny for me in Swedish, but if I can get some nice dubbing or subtitles, maybe that's the way to go.
Well,
although
yeah,
I've heard other
curious,
countries and other countries showing movies that are violent sometimes pull stuff out. So
I'm always curious in foreign countries because my experience in some foreign countries is they play it in English, but you get your foreign subtitles in their foreign language on the bottom. It's not dubbed. So as opposed to it being dubbed with English subtitles on the bottom. So
I think Pete said he saw Logan in China.
Yeah.
And he said it was completely different because of the stuff that they edited out. So I don't know.
Right.
We'll see. Maybe I'll have to see it both ways.
Always interesting. Yes, indeed.
So speaking of action and violence.
For our list, so we're doing in honor of Old Boy, which has an incredibly wonderful, about 2.5 minute long tracking shot down a hallway as Dae-Soo wields his hammer against a slew of hoodlums. in a beautiful long single take. We're talking about our favorite single long takes in action sequences. So,
I want you to start off with the list, because I think that my list is going to be a little bit like a guessing game, but I want to draw attention to a lot of the action sequences that I think are special, and you can maybe confirm or deny whether or not they qualify for your criteria to this list. And if not, then hopefully it's just reminding folks about some great action sequences that have memorable scenes that make people go, wow.
Well, and I actually took a slightly modified route on mine.
Okay, so we both cheated, is what you're saying.
Well, I'm not cheating. I'm not cheating. I just added an extra layer to mine.
Okay.
What it is I because I have a list and some like I started with a list. I'm like, this is just my list is just growing. Like I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 8 movies on my list. It just kept getting bigger and bigger.
That's great.
And then I'm like, I want to do something a little different. And what I ended up doing with my list is because of Ready Player One opening just yesterday, or technically, I guess Wednesday, here. And we're chatting about it on the film board tonight. I said, you know what? I'm going to do this with Spielberg, because Steven Spielberg has always been a director who sneaks like longer shots into his films that you don't always notice. And sometimes like they'll go like, and sometimes it's just like a full minute or something, but sometimes he'll go like a couple minutes, and and just the way that he's moving the camera around, you don't even realize that there's no cuts. It's just very clever, and it's not necessarily overt like you're seeing in like Children of Men, where you can really tell that the camera man is there and there's a lot of movement happening.
Right.
But I just feel like sometimes he does some really beautiful stuff in really long takes, or sometimes it's not even super long, but he's just accomplishing a lot within the time frame. And so I decided, because of all that, I'm going to focus on him specifically for my list.
That sounds good.
So my first one up is Saving Private Ryan, which there's a much longer take than the one I'm going to talk about, but it's a conversation when the group joins up with Paul Giamatti. It's almost 2 minutes, but the one I'm going for, it's only 45 seconds, and I'm actually going to go shortest to longest with my shots here. It's 45 seconds, but it's in the middle of an intense war scene as you're following these guys running. They run into this house. They're running up the stairs. They're looking around. They're looking out the holes in the wall, and the camera kind of looks out the hole in the wall, and you see people shooting at them, and the camera moves back, and then the camera kind of swings and it kind of goes out the wall through a window, and you see this tank rolling up toward them. There's so much stuff happening in this shot. It does remind me quite a bit of kind of the Children of Men sort of stuff, but it doesn't seem as overtly in your face. Again, just watching it again is just, I'm so impressed with everything that they're accomplishing in a big war scene that is just all in this single take. I mean, the amount of work to kind of coordinate all of that, I thought was really spectacular. So that's my first one.
I had Saving Private Ryan on my list too, and I didn't remember the scene that you're talking about in particular, but I feel like there is a lot of around the time period that you're talking about, 45 seconds, somewhere between 30 and 45 second shots in the initial sequence of the film as well. When they're first coming to the beach, that you see a lot of that. And I remember that film had weight in the way that it was shot because it had such time with those long takes. And it was memorable to me in that way too. So I had it like that, but I'm glad that you put it on your list, because it allows me to then talk about Dunkirk and the 5-minute single take tracking shot that kind of opens up the beach for Dunkirk. I was worried about this. This one felt like cheating for me because I felt like it wasn't necessarily action, but there's so much that happens that takes place in this and really sets the scene for the film in terms of the emotional state that all the folks on the beach are dealing with. And it's really, and I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan, so it's a really special shot and really it's almost like an overture. It's a visual overture for everything that you're going to experience in the film, and I think that's really special. The way it's listed on YouTube is an atonement Dunkirk scene. It's coming through. So
Yeah, it's a really great shot that it's a unique way to set up the story, because you're just with these three guys as you're kind of entering this world, and you're just getting a taste of what it's like, and you're seeing them sneaking through, and it just seems so quiet for a minute, and then all of a sudden it's like they're being shot at and everything, and you end up with kind of that one guy as he's trying to get down to the to where everybody is. It really was a great way to open the film, so that's an absolutely great choice.
Yep,
excellent. For my next film, I am going with the 2002 film that Steven Spielberg directed, Minority Report. Again, there is a longer shot in this film than the one I'm going to talk about, but it's a conversation again. So the one that I'm sticking with, it's about 1:13, and it is the shot when I can't remember what they are, but they're like the little spider robots that are released into the apartment complex to go scan everybody's eyes, because they're trying to track where Tom Cruise's character is hiding. And you get this, and this is one where I think Spielberg was a lot more overt with the design of the shot. It kind of goes back to that directly overhead bird's eye view, kind of like what Scorsese did in Taxi Driver, where you're going through walls and stuff, and you're over the building as you're going from room to room, watching these little eye scanner robots crawling under doors and coming into, interrupting, like a mother and daughter, and the mother's holding the daughter because the daughter's freaking out, and she's just like, just let it do it. And then you go over to the next room and you see some people having sex, and they have to stop and get scanned, and you go into the next room and it's like a couple that are having this like fight where they're about to kill each other, and they stop and let it scan them, and they go right back to their fight. It's just this fantastic overhead view of everything. And you end up in the apartment where John is hiding, Tom Cruise's character, and he's trying to like get his door. He's stuffing towels at the bottom of his door so they can't get in before he has to go hide in the bathtub. And it's so exciting, like in the action moment as you're watching these things and you're seeing it's like you are as invasive as these robots. And that's what I love about the way that he designed this particular shot. So that's my second one, Minority Report.
Well, that's super smart, and it again. I feel like we shouldn't be breaking up your list because it's all Spielberg, because you're getting more you're more thematic in that. But I think that's super smart and uses a little bit more technology to accomplish what he's doing in terms of a shot than some of the other things that we might be talking about in this list.
Right.
As you're talking as well, I'm looking at the thing that I was just talking about in Dunkirk, and potentially the long shot that I'm talking about is actually from Atonement and not from Dunkirk.
Well, Atonement has a really long shot, definitely, like where you're walking along the beach and you're seeing like all the devastation and everything.
I looked it up looking for the long scene from Dunkirk, and it took me to literally a page of a 5-minute take of the Dunkirk scene from Atonement. So potentially they're both important for my place on this list.
That's possible. But I do feel, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought the Dunkirk I thought the open of Dunkirk was one long shot, but maybe now I'm misremembering it because you got me stuck.
That's what I'm nervous about too. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So the next one on my list is again kind of cheap in terms of calling about it action, but it's from Baby Driver. And last year, Baby Driver was actually my favorite movie of last year, and it starts with this elaborate sort of it's almost like a dance sequence right at the beginning where it's choreographed as our main character, as Baby, walks through to get coffee for the crew, for the heist guys that he's working with on this film, and it's all choreographed to music, and it's all shot in one long take as he walks through and around people and kind of shows the way that he smoothly operates through life in this really cool, long, one-take sequence on the front end of the film. And it, again, totally a tone setter in the film to look at how slick and well shot that movie was by Edgar Wright. It was my favorite movie because of the way they integrated music, because of the way they integrated choreography. And that long take was something that was really special for me in Baby Driver as well.
That's it's a great choice. It wasn't my favorite film from last year by any stretch. It's probably my least favorite Edgar Wright film.
Oh no, Really?
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I just ended up having a lot more problems with it than anything else that he's done. That being said, it certainly warrants another viewing, because I think even when he's making a film that I'm not as in love with, I think his cinematic prowess as he's putting a film together is top notch. And for me, the scene when they're having the post robbery shootout set to Hocus Pocus is, I think, just mesmerizing, and it's just so well done. I have such a great time watching as John Hamm is running around blasting set to that music. Just total. That's a kick.
I'm going to go get the vinyl for Baby Driver, actually, because the soundtrack is spectacular.
All right. Well, for my final pick, I'm going with one, and I guess you could say it's a little bit of a cheat, but technically it's not. I mean, in a film in an action sequence in a long take, this definitely fits the bill. It just all happens to be animated. This is Spielberg's 2011 film, The Adventures of Tintin, which, a lot of people, I don't know. I don't know if it didn't click with a lot of people, but I had just an absolute blast with this film. I knew who Tintin was. I didn't really ever read any of the books. But the kids and I went to it, and we had so much fun with this movie. It's like their own little Raiders of the Lost Ark sort of thing. It's a kid adventurer. And watching this film, I think, is just a real treat. And there is one scene after Tintin, the bad guys are getting away, and I think they're on like this. I can't remember if it's an island or whatever it is, but it's something where it's set. They're at the top of a big hill, and at the very bottom of the hill is the ocean, and the whole thing is city between. And you have this amazing, amazing chase as it starts off with the bad guys getting away, and Tintin and his dog, they get whatever it is that the bad guys have. I can't remember what it is, but it's some treasure. They get it from the bad guys, and then the bad guys have a falcon, and the falcon gets it from Tintin, and it's going back and forth as they continue trying to get it from the other, all the way as you're chasing them down the hill to get to the boats at the bottom. And it is just a masterful, masterful single shot that is like 2 minutes and 32 seconds long. It is so gorgeous, and it's so fun. It just totally fits the vibe of the film in a way that just, I think, just made this action sequence just super, super exciting. And it's, what they do here, I think, is just really, it makes for a great time. So that's my final pick. It's The Adventures of Tintin. 2 minutes, 32 seconds.
Think that's cheating, because I think that's kind of the spirit of what we're talking about in a long take, right?
Yeah, it's just animated, but I was like, just because it's animation doesn't mean that it's cheating. That it still requires a ton of work to make sure that everything is coordinated, right?
Well, definitely. And we haven't talked about. I'm really happy that I'm on the sat mat that works with this, because we can talk about the oneer that I shot for American Crime.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It was almost 5 minutes long on TV. When we talk about coordination, that was shot in Austin in a theater with 10 dancers, 750 extras. And it was a 5 minute, one shot that we shot. I think we rehearsed it for almost 12 hours the day before we shot it. And then on the day we shot it, we did it, I think, a grand total of 10 times. So a 5 minute dance sequence that we shot, and we probably would have shot it more times had it been possible for the dancers. But it was so intense and so much going on that there's so much to work out when you're doing that. And in general, in the industry, I will say from a camera guy perspective, most camera operators don't want to be part of long takes, because it's so hard to do everything correctly the longer that you're running with action on there. So it's a real accomplishment when you do it. If people want to check that out, you can find it on YouTube under American Crime Season 2, Episode 5, or a long dance sequence. And that's again not action, but something to show a long take on TV. The last one that I wanted to talk about was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and I think that this is a little bit of a different, and it is a cheat, because I don't really know if there's one sequence that's particularly a long take that I want to talk about. But one thing that was really special to me about that movie, and I almost always go to that movie when we talk about action and my favorite action movies, because I remember sitting in the theater and watching the camera just set up and stay still to watch so much beautiful choreography from an action standpoint on screen. The particular scene that I'm thinking of is when the Jade Dragon and the main character Jen are fighting with there's a sort of soldier that's trying to track her down, and it's at night, and it takes a while before the main character comes in. And literally, they just set the camera up and sit there, and we watch them fight and watch the choreography go forward. There was so much wow that was happening on screen that a lot of the camera aspect was just allowing us to see it. And I don't think I had ever seen action done that way and choreographed that way. Some time ago, we talked about on Instagram about what makes a great action film for me. And in general, the things that happened in Crouching Tiger, where I had multiple times where I just said, wow, where it just felt like a roller coaster of action that I had never seen before in a way that I had never seen before, in these sort of long set pieces that were open to allowing me to experience the action. Made Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon a very special action movie for me. The other, maybe other set piece that I remember, that again, I don't think there's one long set piece in it, or one long shot, but there's, it's such a set piece, is when Jen is finally adventuring. All she's ever wanted to do is adventure, and she brings the Green Destiny along with her, and she goes into a sort of a bar where a lot of adventurers, kind of mercenaries, are hanging out, and everybody just kind of treats her poorly because she's a young girl, and then she just destroys the bar with the sword. That kind of stuff I hadn't seen in American action movies before, and that movie changed the way that I watched action movies. And there's so many long set pieces filled with great action that made me want to talk about it anytime we're talking about something that involves action in film.
It's a great movie. I haven't seen it in ages, but I do remember when I saw it in theaters. It was one I returned to 3 or 4 times in theaters, just because I was just really taken by the world that they had set up here. I had such a fantastic time with it. And I can't remember specifically with any of the action sequences, if any of them are long takes either, but I do remember just being really mesmerized by what they were doing there. So, yeah, great choice. Well, yeah, that's it. So
kind of cheating.
I think that
we'll see. Maybe the other guys will give me crap about it, but
I don't remember it well enough to say if it's cheating or not, but in spirit though, I'm going to read through the titles of the other ones that I came up with, just to at least throw these out there. Contact, The Raid 2, Atonement, which was on my list, which you already mentioned, Hard-Boiled, Paths of Glory, Snake Eyes, The Revenant, and Hannah. So those were some other great films with long takes that I recall. So
the other things that were on my list were more to that sort of realm of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I can't remember the specific long sequences in it, but I had Kill Bill on the list. Thinking about
when they go into the what's that place called?
I'm not sure. But when Uma Thurman at the end of Kill Bill Volume 1, where they have the big fight sequence in the snow with Uma Thurman coming, I mean, there's so many great action sequences in Kill Bill that it deserves noting. And then also The Matrix. I don't think anything in The Matrix is a long shot, and that's why I didn't want to bring it up here. But when Neo and Trinity first walk into the scene where there's the metal detectors, and we see them running around, and just the immense amount of shell casings that are dropped and all the different things that happen in that, or even in The Matrix 2, where they're fighting the two long-haired white dreadlocked guys in that sort of one room. There's just so many great action sequences there that in both those, I wasn't comfortable picking a long take because I don't think enough of that happens, but there's so many great action set pieces in those movies that I thought they were worth noting as well.
Those are some. I got stuck thinking about The Matrix, and I'm trying to remember. I feel like the ones that I remember being longer in The Matrix are really more where it's using that fantastic technique where the camera, like the way the camera moves around, like the one where they're fighting in the subway or something. But I can't remember if they were specifically long takes. But yeah, great choices though. Just all great films, really exciting things to watch. And I think it just goes to show when filmmakers take their tools and they really work hard to to give you something like this, I think it just makes it that much more cinematic. I think that's what stands out. And I think that's why, like, the director you worked with in that TV show chose to do that, because it does lend a cinematic feel to it. It's not just straight up TV storytelling. And that's, I think, what make films something that is a special medium, because you can do things like this. So.
And did we talk about who that was? So that the showrunner on American Crime was John Ridley from 12 Years a Slave. And then the director was Rachel Morrison, who was the director for Black Panther. So, I mean, a really great crew of super creative, young, really innovative filmmakers. And so glad that they brought it to TV, and love the things they're bringing to film too.
Well, so for next week, we're finishing our Vengeance trilogy with Lady Vengeance. I haven't seen it yet. I know it starts out with a wrongful arrest. A woman is arrested for a crime she didn't commit, and then when she's finally released, she goes on revenge against the people who did commit the crime. Over on our Slack group, Nick Langdon suggested we do women in prison films, which I think is pretty funny. Unfortunately, I don't think I've really seen any women in prison movies.
All I know is Orange is the New Black, and that doesn't count.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, so I think... and
you said Slack, you mean Discord, right?
On Discord, yeah, right. I was thinking, what if we just did films where, wrongful arrests? And, I think that allows for quite a lot of fantastic choices.
That's a cool idea. Yeah. I'm thinking of what I would apply to that. Again, I might try to cheat a little bit and maybe do a little bit of criminal as hero.
I like the first thing that you think of is, how can I cheat on this list?
Just subvert it a little bit if I can.
Oh, fantastic. So funny. Well, right. I think it was great chatting with you today, JJ.
Thanks. Yeah,
glad to have you on the Sat Mat.
Do it whenever I can.
Excellent. And for all of you out there who are tuning in, you are one of our Patreon supporters, and we greatly appreciate you and the support you provide. So thank you so much for being a part of this and helping us with our show and tuning in.
Thank you.
Other than that, I guess that's it. So we'll see you next time, JJ.
Have a great Saturday.
All right. Bye.